What's up, Ebike fans? Behind me, I have the Hurley Mini Swell. This is a 500 watt, 20 inch by 4 inch fat tire Scrambler style bike. And this bike is actually a lot of fun. I gotta say, there's some things that you guys really wanna go ahead and check out if you're ever thinking about getting a Scrambler style bike. And this is a great bike that actually gives a good overview of what Scrambler styles are really all about. These are bikes that are, I would say, not necessarily for those who want a lot of exercise. But, it's a bike, and there's pedals, but it's not really a bike that you might want to be actually thinking about going out and pedaling a lot on. Let's go ahead and talk about the review and go into the specs and also get some ride footage shown on here on how much fun this bike really is. Okay, I really want to start with talking about the beefy tires that are on this bike. For one, it is a 20 by 4 inch. I have multiple 4 inch or fat tire e-bikes, and for some reason, these tires are just really beefy. I mean, more than usual. In fact, even when I put them side by side with some of the other bikes, it is noticeable. They do have a 30 PSI max rating. I have mine running at 25 just because it doesn't need to be completely solid. Now, looking at this front side, I also want to go ahead and mention that it does have a suspension fork. One thing that is noticeable also when you have a bike like this is that the turn radius does have a stopping that is not really sharp, like as you can see right here. This is the furthest it'll go on a turn. And that's fine. Actually, it works out. You're not really going to go ahead and make turns that sharp anyway. The cool thing about the way that this whole bike is designed or gets shipped is that it comes like 85 to 95% complete. Basically, the only thing that you will see in the unboxing is that the handlebars just has to be put on. Everything else, the bike is already put together. So if you're going to have this bike shipped to you, just know it is in a big box because tires are already on. You don't have to put the tire on like a lot of other bikes. All you have to do is put on the handlebars and you're almost ready to go. I would always recommend every nut and bolt tightened down just in case, because in shipping sometimes just nuts and bolts get loose. This is how it came, nice and wrapped. It's got to be one of the fastest or easiest bikes to put together. The only thing I did add was the flat out tire sealant. Because these tires are fat tires and they are typically softer, they're going to actually be more susceptible to flats a lot of times. So I actually always put flat out tire sealant in it. And that's to make sure that we don't get flat tires. We do have a headlight in the front. It is a decent headlight, so you can ride at night. For visibility, you will have to just make sure that you're going a little slower than usual because it's not an exceptionally bright. Like other bikes, I would also recommend getting a secondary light if you are going to be riding at night and you need it for visibility. Now, it does actually help for being seen by drivers, so that is one thing that's really good. The other thing I really like, let's move up to the handlebars. First thing you'll notice, it has like BMX style handlebars. These are awesome. It just has a nice feel. The other thing that's a benefit to having bars like this is that your range from going from front to back closer to the seat gives you a lot more flexibility on making sure that you can reach as far as riding position. And that's one thing that's really good about having bars like this is that you can also just move them back and forth. It also leaves a lot of room for accessories. As you'll see in the riding videos, I do have my water bottle put on here, but you also have a lot of other space that you can put other accessories on here, like your cell phone holders. You can get water bottle holders like the bags that are on there at the ebikeproducts.com/shop website. And we have great deals on those for fitting any bike, actually, because a lot of bikes do not have water bottle bosses or good places to hold a water bottle. We do have your front end brake that does have automatic cutoffs so that the motor does disengage. That's what this is for. These are mechanical brakes, and actually these brakes work really well. I don't know the brand name that's on this, but they work really well and they don't make squeaky or scratchy noises, which is really good. The other thing that you'll notice with this rim, since we're here, is these are 160 millimeter rotors, again, mechanical disc brakes, and they have also a quick release put on here. So if you need to remove the tire, it makes it a lot easier, especially on your front, especially if you need to go ahead and make a change on your flat on your front there. We have our shifter here, and it is a 6-speed Shimano index shifter. It is a very functional shifter. On the back side here, connected to that, we do have our Shimano tourney derailleur with have a 14 to 28 tooth freewheel in the back, and connected to that, as you can see, we have a 48 volt 500 watt motor, and this motor is actually decent in power. I wouldn't say it's anything like super surprising, and one of the reasons it could be because it does have a 48 volt battery, and connected to that battery is only a 10 amp hour capacity. Now with that, you're probably going to get about 20 to 40 miles of range depending on how much help, and I'm going to say 20 to 25 is going to be your bigger average. Just because of the style of this kind of bike, it is not made to really pedal and help it. You're going to be doing most of your traveling with throttle only. As you can see, the width of this seat here, if you can imagine trying to pedal a bike with something that wide between your legs, I was kind of likening it to pedaling with a cantaloupe between your leg. It's just not the most comfortable thing to do. Now you can pedal it for sure. If you stand up, you could actually do it, and that's something that's also available for you to do. And you do have an integrated rear tail light, and also, so that does mean that it is running off of the battery. You don't have a separate battery for that, and the headlight is also integrated as well. This bike is cadence censored, of course, and that is because if you tried to have a torque sensor, then you would need to pedal all the time. We do have a 42 tooth chain ring. You will probably need to do a lot of shifting. So the turning shifter, again, it does an adequate job of making sure that you can get from one gear to the next pretty easily. So on this side of the battery, we also have an on and off switch here. So you can shut off the battery when you're off the bike. Here's your plug-in. Cool thing about having the plug-in right here the way it is that you can actually remove the battery from the bike itself and charge it in the house, or you can just leave it on and charge it right there the way it is. Let me go ahead and show you what it looks like when we take out the battery from the bike. Battery removal is pretty easy. They actually have this really cool key with the Hurley design. Turning this all the way to the other side here, to unlock it, you can pull out the key and the battery is now free to be removed. It also has an indicator here to tell you what the battery level is at as a rough estimate while looking at it from when the bike is not powered on or it's not on the bike itself. So this is actually really good to have, because a lot of times you want to know how much power you might have, whether or not it needs to be charged, if you need to do a quick charge overnight, or if you think there's enough. This has 75% power, as what you can see here. Now the other thing that we have here is our controller, and as you can see, this has a 16 amp controller, 46.8 volt, and it is running at 20 miles per hour top speed. And as you will see in the video, we were actually getting more than 20 miles an hour when the battery was fully charged. And I want to make that point clear because the speedometer on the bike stops at 20 miles an hour. So if you're going over 20, you really can't tell. But being that we ride enough, we were able to just feel as though we must have been going faster than the 20 mile an hour speed. And sure enough, as you see in the GPS, we were getting about 23 miles an hour at top speed when the battery was fully charged. Now, when the battery starts to lose some of its charge, you will definitely notice that the bike starts to actually lose a lot of its power. And that's typical of a lot of different bikes. But again, this is only a 10 amp hour battery. So, you know, a lot of times you want to make sure that you are aware that if you start to see the battery start going down, you might want to go ahead and plan your ride of where you want to be, because you don't want to be pedaling this bike home. You know, getting a second battery is also an option for a lot of people that have actually battery anxieties. From what I can tell, this bike does not necessarily have a lot of things to cover it against rainproofing. So I'm not 100% sure, but I do not think that this is a rainproof bike. So you probably don't want to ride it too many places where it's going to get real wet. Okay, so for the display here, first thing that we're going to do is once you have your battery plugged in, you want to turn on your switch to on, holding the middle button down. You will then now have your display turned on. Now, right now it is 5 o'clock in the afternoon with the sun blazing in this area. So you can actually see the display quite well even if it is sunny. In fact, let me turn the bike so that the sun is actually hitting the display right on it. There, as you can see, even with the sun hitting it, you can still see it very clearly. Now the other thing you can do is you can actually see your assist levels here. You have 1, 2, and 3. That is the top 3 levels that you have. You also have your odometer reading. By clicking in the middle, you have your trip. It seems to reset every time you have the bike turned off. Your voltage and your time of ride. One thing I noticed about the Mini Swell here is that it is tuned for a lot of safety. What I mean by that, when you start off this bike, it does not have throttle on demand. You will need to actually be going a speed of at least 2 miles an hour before the throttle will kick in. So what I've been doing is actually hit the throttle all the way up, because as you notice, I can hit it and it won't move. And then I start to actually either push the bike or pedal, and once it hits 2 miles an hour, the throttle kicks in. Or, so you can set this to 0, so there's no assist, but when the bike's turned on, it's on 1. And like I said, you cannot throttle at this time. So what you want to do is have it either set to 1 or 3. And when you start to pedal, just keep on pedaling, even if the bike is going faster than what you're pedaling, and the motor will kick in automatically, and then you can adjust and ride with throttle. Now, as long as if you're coming to a rolling stop and you're going above 2 miles an hour, you can just release your throttle, roll, and then hit your throttle again and start going again. So that's one of the quirks about this bike that I would say is different than many other bikes, but it is a feature that other big name brands used to have on their bikes as well. And again, it's a safety feature so that nobody accidentally hits the throttle when they don't intend to have the bike actually start rolling. So another display feature I want to mention about a function here, you just hold the up button, and what that'll do is in the top corner here, you see that the headlight indicator tells you that the headlight is on. By holding it again, it will shut off. Another thing you can actually do is if you hold the down button, it will actually go into walk mode. And let me go ahead and show you that. And so what you can do is if you actually need to walk your bike and you don't want to be pushing it without any help, you can hold the down button and holding it down for a few seconds. And then what you'll notice is the motor kicks in and it actually runs at a speed of about 3 miles an hour, which you can go ahead and walk with your bike. Now, that's a good feature to have. Just hit the brake to go ahead and turn the cutoff, and it'll actually stop it there. So it's a good feature to have because you can also think about maybe perhaps using that to get started if you need a little help in a place that needs a little more boosting. Because one of the things is if you're stuck in a place where you're actually have an uphill in front of you, to get started, you have to always make sure that you're in the right gearing, otherwise it's going to have a hard time doing that as well. You also have the ability to go ahead and get to that 2 miles an hour so that the throttle will kick in. Okay, so this is an example of someone who's my height, which is I'm 5'5", to be able to stand on this bike. Basically, I really am almost tippy-toeing. So the other thing is, like I said, you can't throttle this to get it started, but you might be able to go ahead and use the walk mode to get you started like that. All right, so the last thing I want to point out is thank you so much to Hurley for sending this bike out to me. You can actually find great deals and this bike by going to ebikeproducts.com/Hurley. That link will take you to the distributor that will actually give you the deal, and look for the coupon codes also in the description below for the best deal on this bike. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.